All right, welcome everybody uh to our live stream that we're doing today, learning how to do graphic novels specifically through my graphic novel Darkstalker, which just came out in November. And I wanted to walk you all through the process that it took to draw 252 comic pages. And we're going to look at the cover and we're going to look at just kind of all the behind the scenes stuff here. So let me share my screen. I do want to point out we are launching Graphic Novel Pro again in January. And right now you can get on the wait list to join Graphic Novel Pro. Um, and I'll share the link is shared in the chat, but here we go. I'm going to show you our sign up page for it just so that we know where we're all at here. You're going to go to graphic or svslearn.com, graphic-novel-pro, and click on this join the waitlist here. Put your little email right there. And then what you're going to do is you're going to get access to, in the meantime, before the class actually launches, we have a free 6 video series that talks about how to get started into making your comic with some really good actionable advice. But if you want to know more about this course, which Sean and I taught earlier this year, um, you can see all of the information about what you get for this course. But it is I want to say it's the best course online for teaching people how to make comics. It's 10 weeks, and you can go in here and you can open these up and see what we're going to go through each week. You know, the comics landscape. We talk about the publishing side of the industry, the direct market, things like that. So do check this out if comics is your thing. You can also see what our past students have said about it. We have a lot of people who have made some amazing comics after taking this class. It's really cool to see that. But in the meantime, while before that goes, we're going to talk about Darkstalker here. So here's the full cover illustration that I made for it. But that's not the thing I want to show first. The thing I want to show first is the comic pages. So this is all 252 comic pages that went into Darkstalker. And you can see here I'm working in Clip Studio Paint. That's what I drew this comic in.
Hey,
And this,
hey, Jake, hold on one second.
yeah,
Just want to tell everybody if you guys have a question, go ahead. I'm going to be fielding the questions. And so if you guys can write in uppercase, just question, and then put your question after it, I will grab that and get that to Jake as we go. So we don't have to so we don't miss your question. And also so we don't keep interrupting like I'm doing right now.
yeah, sounds good. Okay, so uh, this is the 252 pages. I remember starting this book, and the way Clip Studio Paint works is you punch in how big your project's going to be, and you just, I open it up and I said it needs to be these dimensions, and it needs to be 252 pages, and I had this many pages blank staring at me, and I was just like, this is never going to happen. I'm never going to finish this. But what's cool is you just start. You don't worry about there's the phrase how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And so this elephant was just eaten one page at a time, and I made a goal to do 5 pages a week. Some weeks I had to do more to catch up. So some weeks it was, I think the most I ever did in one week was like 12. Uh, and um, that's essentially how you chip away at it. Okay, but this is not where we're going to start at. What we're going to start at actually is right here. I want to show you the
Hey, Jake, is the reason to do it in Clip Studio versus Photoshop or even Procreate just because of this page management system?
management system and also the word bubble tool.
Okay.
Photoshop doesn't have a word bubble tool, and this one does. There's and also a panel and layout tool as well, which I can demonstrate how that does. But before I ever did uh, anything for the comic, I had to do some character designs, and so I just want to show you some of my early sketches for me trying to figure out how the heck do you draw a dragon. I was so nervous about this because I know the fans love the Wings of Fire fans love the way their dragons look, and there's some criticism about any artist that kind of could stray from a certain design, and I didn't want to throw people off too much, but according to some fans, you just can never, you just can't get it right, regardless. So the question was, how do you draw a dragon from different angles? So it helped to do some of these head studies and try to draw them from, front and side, three-quarter, top, and looking down at them. I looked at a lot of what Mike Holmes was doing in his graphic novel, and I wanted to have some of that, but I wanted to give the dragons a little bit more of what Joy Ang was doing with her covers and give the dragons a little more of a elongated face. And so this was like very early on. I am not happy with how these early designs look, but I feel like I was just sort of figuring out like what is possible, how to use the ears more so as a tool for expression, how to make the eyes really expressive. And so these were some of my early drawings for like how do I bring more facial expression to these characters than you would normally see in like a traditional fantasy illustration for a comic.
What was the hard part as you were driving? Was it adding was it anything about the structure of the dragon's faces, or was it literally just like, okay, I can draw a dragon with no expression, but how do you get that expression in
That's
there?
a that's a really good question. And it really is how do you take something that has this elongated face and give it the kind of expressions that you would see in the interactions that these dragons are having? Because these dragons aren't fire breathing, town raiding dragons. These are dragons that have relationships and have hopes and dreams, and dragons that start out good and turn evil, and dragons that start out evil and turn good. And so you have to reflect all of that. And so you could see here me trying just with these ones, like how do I make a dragon look nervous or worried? How do I make a dragon look, kind of happy or serious, right? And these aren't final. These were just very early. You could see these were done 2 years ago. Um, and then also, how do you do the body in a way that um, in a way that you it looks like a dragon, but also it has to do some human-like things because in this story, a dragon will be walking down the stairs, but also carrying a spear, right? So, how do you do a quadrupedal character who walks on all fours, but is also carrying something, carrying a weapon with them, right?
Oh, that's
Uh,
tough.
yeah, or how do you draw, one scene called for a dragon. Lots of times these dragons are handling things with their hands. They're drinking out of mugs. They're serving themselves with serving utensils and things like that. And so my solution was to just rear them up on their hind legs, almost like when a dog is sitting at attention, and then they have these hands free to drink out of goblets and to use a knife if they need to use a knife and hold a spear and things like that. My other solution was when they're walking on all fours is to have this wing act as an extra limb so they can hold a like kind of wedge a spear through their claw holding a wing. But this early designs here were to try to figure out like what's the style of the body and how stocky do I make them or how long do I make them. And so this was Darkstalker. Again, here's some more designs. Just trying to figure out faces and attitudes and really just getting my head wrapped around all the little line works that you have to remember to do while you're drawing these characters.
How
Um,
long did you spend on this sort of warm up phase? How long did you give yourself an allocated amount, or were you like, I'm just going
mhm.
to stay here until I figure it out?
I wish I would have stayed here longer, but I really just gave myself like a week. Uh, this one was really helpful. I realized that my strength lied in drawing the dragons flying. And so as often as I could, I would find ways to put them up in the sky and just show these dragons like doing what a dragon I think does best, and that's like flying through the sky. Um, Let me see here. What else do we got? Oh, uh, here's another, yeah, head turn. And I think that is it for dragons. Oh, then it was once I sort of figured out Darkstalker, then it was how do I make clear sight look a little different and just teaching myself like how do I do these next scales? How many scales do I do on the side?
How
Um,
did you approach making them different? Because once you have learned sort of the basic structure of a dragon and then also how to make the different
mhm.
facial expressions, then is it just about changing your silhouette or what'd you do?
Yeah, so like if you look at Darkstalker, I gave him really angular features, and that's because his parents are two different species of dragon. His dad's an ice wing, and his mother's a night wing. And night wings, I have designed them to be have a little bit more. There's a curvature to the angularity. There's an angularity, but with curves added to them. So clear sight is full night wing. So I gave her these kind of curves but sharp edges to them. Whereas ice wings are like crystal like almost. And so they have a lot of sharp edges. And so Darkstalker, I made sure to give his cheekbones and his chin and his the sides of his jaw these really sharp angles so that you could tell that his father was an ice wing. Um, here's another different kind of dragon. This is a eagle and sunset. These are more traditional looking dragons. They're red, um, with specific horns sticking out in certain places. So it was just trying to look at what's been done, what Joy did, what Mike did, and what I could do to that worked for me and my style a little bit. So there's that, and then this is Whiteout. She's another hybrid between an Ice Wing and a Nightwing. And then this is sort of like, again, just a generic dragon head. And what I found going into this was, um, for the most part, you just need to have a side view, a good side view, and a good three-quarter view, because 90% of the heads that you draw are going to be a three-quarter and a side view. Very rarely do you ever see a character straight on in the front. It's just kind of awkward when you have a character like a dragon or like a horse or any sort of animal to have that front on POV because um, it's almost like it's breaking the fourth wall in comics. The fourth wall being the panel that we're looking through to see this. And you don't really want characters looking straight at you unless it's very intentional for what the story needs. Okay, so there's that. Um,
Were you locked into any character style from the previous books?
so that was another note I got. They said, do your style, Jake, but make there needs to be some sort of link to the previous books. Um, so certain things like Mike would do these ridges on the noses for the Night Wings, and so I maintained that. He had these ridges over top the eyes. I tried to maintain that, but I sort of gave them my style. And some of the way he did the scales on the necks, I also tried to mimic as well. Um, okay, let me see here. One other thing that I thought was cool, and we'll go to the comic pages now. Um, is I didn't want because I was still learning how to do the dragons, how to draw them. I didn't want the start of the book to look I knew this was going to happen, but I didn't want it to be egregious. And that was to have the dragons look different on the first 50 pages and have them look different on the last 50 pages because I finally figured out how to draw them. And so the first page I actually drew for Darkstalker was page 10. And it was this this uh, introduction to Prince Fathom, who is one of the main characters here. And I went and drew this entire scene with Fathom, and then I went and drew the birth of Darkstalker. And once I got through with that to like page 20, yeah, I went back and started and did the first 10 pages or the first 9 pages with the two ice wings with Arctic and him meeting Foe Slayer. Um, and so that was just I just wanted the first 10 pages to not look like it was me figuring things out, but me sort of having a handle on it. Um,
Smart.
which, yeah, which it's still, it mostly worked. If you look at the end of the book, you could see I got a lot more comfortable and figured it out. And I can scroll down to the sort of the end pages here, with like, yeah, you could see here with Clear Sight and Darkstalker, like these faces, I was a lot more comfortable with it. And one thing I learned too was their mouths just work a lot better when I started out drawing them sort of with dog mouths. So like the you could see the back teeth if they opened wide enough. And I realized the expressions work a lot better if they had more like horses' mouths, where the mouth was more towards the front, instead of opening all the way. But if needed, they could open their mouths all the way, should the scene need it. Okay. So let's break down an actual comic page. And I haven't been reading the chat at all, but if there are
I
a
was
couple questions.
I was going to ask how you want to do that. I've got a few questions kind of queued up, but
Yeah, yeah.
it's
If there's
however you want.
any that go over what we talked about so far, that I can.
Yeah, it just kind of touches on. Here, let me grab this last question that Renee just asked. Hold on one second. All right. So just some basic software questions, and then a couple of questions about just sort of getting your project going, like you're talking
Okay.
about now. What resources would you recommend to learn Clip Studio Pro? I usually draw in Procreate, but Clip Studio Pro seems Clip Studio Pro seems a little bit overwhelming.
Yeah.
Um,
It is going to be a little overwhelming, especially if you've never used Photoshop, where it's more intuitive if you have a Photoshop background, because the two programs have a lot of overlap in the way that some of the tools and just the setup of the different uh, windows that they have. So if you're comfortable with Photoshop, you're gonna glide into Clip Studio Paint with very few problems. If you're more of a Procreate user, there is going to be a learning curve to this. And what I would recommend doing um, is to just do like a 5 page comic, start to finish, only in Clip Studio, and learn by doing a comic. Don't learn by just messing around with it, but learn by doing a comic. And the way that you're gonna, I guess the best tutorials for this are going to be Clip Studio Paint itself has a tutorial page with so many videos that just show you the ins and out and how to do it. You go on YouTube as well, and there's a video for any problem you're going to run into with Clip Studio Paint. It's got millions of users, and it's very well documented program as far as learning stuff and how to do stuff.
is it
And
free?
no, it's not free, but it is extremely affordable. So you can essentially, I have maybe poured $200 into Clip Studio Paint for the last 10, 15 years.
Oh wow.
Something like that. You buy a
Well,
version of it, and then you can just keep using that version of it. You don't ever have to update it if you don't want to. And the only reason I paid more is because I wanted to update it because there was a new feature I wanted.
mm.
But did I end up using that new feature? Not really.
Well, that segues really good into the next question on, your answer of doing 4 or 5 panels, 5 or 6 panels as sort of a test to learn the software.
hmm
Is that something somebody could do in Graphic Novel Pro? And the question that goes with that is, how does Graphic Novel Pro differ from Self-Publishing Pro that we've done in the past?
Oh my gosh. Okay, Self-Publishing Pro was just about how to how to create a product and take it to market. But a very general overview of product ideation, and then how to plan a product from the beginning for marketing. Graphic Novel Pro is geared towards people who want to make comics and have are just want to know a very streamlined, easy to understand process of taking an idea that's in your head, or not even having an idea for a story in your head, but figuring out how to come up with an idea for a story, and then translating that to the comic page, because and doing it at a high professional level. So we teach you. how to come up with characters, how to write a character arc. There's a lot in the storytelling where we teach you how to outline a comic, teach you how to draw a scene. And then we get into the nitty gritty of like, here's how paneling works. Here's the proper way to do panels. Here's the right order and to show certain actions. Here's how you do word bubbles. Here's how you do character design for comics, because character designing for animation versus children's books, it's all completely different. Some of it overlaps, but there's some specific things that you got to know and understand. How do you show a character acting from panel to panel? Stuff like that. So,
Well, a question that goes with that Mabel's
yeah.
just asking right now is when the sign up for Graphic Novel Pro is already up now, right?
Yeah, you can get in on the waiting list. We're going to open the cart before Christmas for a few days, and then we're going to open it a week before for final enrollment before the class launches in January.
Can somebody on our staff get a link in the chat, please,
Yeah,
for
I
that?
think if you go in the chat and just click on the one that's pinned to the top, it should
Oh,
get
okay.
you
I
right
didn't
there.
see that. Just another side note for you guys who are familiar with Self Publishing Pro, we are going to be putting that for free into our studio tier. So it's not going to be a paid class anymore. It just comes with the high tier of SVS,
Yeah.
and that's going to be happening pretty soon, next month or so. And so that's pretty going to be pretty exciting. A couple more quick questions, and I'm going to let Jake get to designing a page.
Before you
Um,
get to that question, I just want to show you one of the best features of Clip Studio Pro. And
oh,
this
go ahead.
wasn't meant to be an ad for Clip Studio, but let's say you got a comic page and you're going to go in there and you're going to, figure out, okay, I want a big frame here, and then I want like two smaller frames here, and then a final frame here, right? And if you're in Photoshop, you're gonna have to get in there and get the shift tool, and like try to make the straightest lines possible to like make that happen, right? Um, or you can get out the pen tool and do it. And then maybe you might realize like, oh, these panels are a little off, so you're gonna have to erase it or mess around with splines and stuff in Photoshop. And then you might look at this and be like, you know what, actually, I want like diagonal panels, right? And then you're going in and now you're having to redo everything. Well, in Clip Studio Paint, you come here, you get this crate frame tool. Boom, you got that. We're just going to put our pencils on the top there so we can still see it and drop them down here. And then we got the cut frame tool. So then you go in here, look at that. You got your panels cut apart like that.
Oh, that is so cool.
And then if you ever need to make any adjustments, like I was saying, like maybe I don't want it this diagonal, you can just go in here and
Oh, and
drag these
it
pieces.
keeps that spacing. Yeah, see, so that clears up. Oh, why wouldn't I just set up this big multi-page document in InDesign? Well, that's a perfect reason.
Right, right. And then you can do like I'll not say this, but then you could set it to be 20 pages or 10 pages or 252 pages. And as you're working on a page, so if I click into this page, um, and I can, whoops, let me just zoom out. So I can be working on this page while still see it in context with the other
Oh,
pages.
that's so cool. That is really, really, I mean, it seems like like a children's book would be good for this same thing if the tools
Yeah.
were right for what you're doing. Let me answer a question real quick about self-publishing pro. I don't want to talk about self-publishing too much, but it's basically like Jake said, just focused on any project. We had some students doing greeting cards, some students doing children's books, some students doing graphic novels, calendars, anything that basically you can sell that is your project that walks you through that process. So it's
Mhm.
not dependent on it being some kind of
Right.
specific thing.
With Graphic Novel Pro, the by the end of the course, you're going to have a script and layouts, if not finished inks, of a comic story. 20 pages, 10 pages, whatever you have the time to do. But that story that you've created is either going to be something you can take to Marvel and say, like, hey, look, I want to work for you. Here's a sample of my comic. And we get into how do you pitch yourself to Marvel and get work there. Or if you want to work for one of the trade publishers like Penguin Random House, Scholastic, and Simon Schuster, all these companies that have graphic novel imprints, we teach you how to do a professional proposal to take to an agent, to take to an editor and say, here's my idea for a graphic novel. And then it's also there if you want to self-publish as well. We get into a little bit on like how do you self-publish your comics as well.
All right, here, let me give you some quick hit questions. You
Okay.
ready for speed round?
Yep.
Does the week of exploration include concepting the world, props, and human characters, or was that week just for dragons?
That was just for dragons. I'm so comfortable and confident in prop design, environment design, because that was my background in animation. I worked in animation for many years in the art department as an environment designer, which meant my job was to design buildings, design vehicles, design props that characters held. And it's second nature to me. So I knew I could usually design most things on the page. I didn't have to have a concepting phase. And I knew I would get something pretty close to what I needed. Characters is not my strength, or if it looks like it's my strength, it's because I work really hard at it. And and so that's why I felt like I just needed that time to figure out the character designs.
Yep. Okay. Next question. Were you a fan of this whole series before the project?
I had not read the books before this project. However, I was familiar with them. I've been a huge fan of Joy for her whole career, essentially, ever since I first saw her work in the anthology project, um, which was, I would say, back in 2005 is when I first started following her. And when I saw her start doing the art for Wings of Fire for the covers, it was definitely on my radar, but I was I never really dove into the books, though I respected them. So when this job came up, this opportunity to do this, it was like, oh, here's a great chance to really jump in and see what this series is all about and why so many people love it.
That's
Now I'm a
cool.
huge fan.
Did they give you a script, or you didn't convert this story to the
No,
comic from?
no. So that's what I want. If there's any other questions, I can go into process here.
Okay. Yeah. Let's dive in.
Okay. Um, Let me find. Okay, so what I got from Scholastic was this script right here, which was um, Barry and Amanda, these two comic writers slash artists, work with Tui. They read her books, they have meetings with her, and they're the ones who essentially take her book and write a script that says page one, panel two, right? And they'll go into and figure out what's going to be on page two. Hold on. Page two is going to have 5 panels. And let's just go ahead and look at this. So Panel, page two of panel one, a closer shot of Arctic, looking annoyed and overwhelmed. He is surrounded by burst captions, bits of his mother's lectures to him, which are overlapping and crowding around him, fighting for attention. The 3 captions listed first are the most important ones, so they shouldn't be covered up. The others are less important, and it's fine if parts of them are covered up by the overlapping burst captions or by Arctic's heads passing in front of them. So this is what I've got to draw for panel one, and this tells me all of the images that need to be in there. So let me go to panel one here and show you how to solve that problem. So essentially, this is what my solution was. The thing is when I'm going through and reading these, I'm reading the whole page first, and I'm saying that it needs to have 5 panels. And so my first step will actually be, let me just turn off all of these and turn off that there. And what I'll do is I'll just go in and whoops, throw in all the word bubbles on the page and kind of space them out because you can't draw anything. You shouldn't draw anything that's going to be covered up by word bubbles. And word bubbles are the first thing that people see when they're reading a comic, and it's the thing they pay the most attention to, honestly. The art is usually a lot of times secondary for a lot of readers. And so I figure out a nice sort of pacing for the word bubbles, word balloons, and then I'm going to go in and add the panels um, next. And so now that I have word balloons and panels figured out, and actually before I even draw the word balloons, I'll go in and do sort of a very loose version of it. I'll go in and add the really loose drawings of where I think these characters should be. So pencil it in first, do a darker pencil for it. You could see here, I was still trying to get comfortable with the head, so I drew a really good head on page one, and I just copied and pasted it, so I could like kind of draw over it when I went to ink it. And then once my pencils are good, I will go in and word balloon it and then add the inks. And I'll usually separate, if it's a pretty detailed background, I'll separate the background from the main characters. With this one, actually, um, you could see here the word balloon is covering up kind of a cool little detail, and that is these ice sculptures in the back. So in the final version of the book, I went and moved these word bubbles down so that we could see these really cool ice sculptures in the back of, the bear and owl and the three moons for Darkstalker. So this is essentially what happens. I repeat this over and over again. I'll go to the next page. I'll read the next script. I will lay out the the words first, then draw the panels, then figure out the actual shape of the balloons, and I'll continue on until it's finished and inked. I want to show you kind of a fun thing here. So there's a scene where here we go. I think there's a scene where the three main characters are kind of getting to know each other on this little island, and one of them is assigned to protect a prince. So one of them's a prince and one of them's like his bodyguard. And she doesn't trust Darkstalker at all. And so there was this part here where she whips out a knife, and it's like a kind of like a throwing star. And so it's got four blades. And I had to draw this part where she whips it out, where she holds it up to his neck, and there's another shot where she's holding it up to his neck. And I just was like, how the heck do I draw a dragon hand holding this very awkward shape? Well, here's what I did, if you're ready for it. I went and designed the knife on a sheet of paper, and I printed this out and glued it onto some cardboard. And then you could see here, you could see the backside of the cardboard. It's just an Amazon box. This is me holding it, looking at it, and I took pictures of me holding it in my hand from various angles. So, like, this is how Indigo might be holding it when she first brandishes it. And then this image right here might be a forward image of it coming towards us. And then this is her holding it against, one of the dragon's necks, right? And you could see like my other hand is like taking the picture while it's holding that. But I just wanted to have a really good understanding of where the fingers would be placed and how they would be placed, so that when I went in and drew this, you could see this is, now that you saw those images, you could see this is my hand. It's got kind of the same proportions for my hand. And that's how I sort of solved that problem. Now, one critique I've seen online is that I drew these dragons with not enough like taloned hands, but more like human hands. And I think that's a fair critique. Granted, they have to do a lot of human things with these dragon hands, and so it just made more sense to give them longer fingers. But I think moving forward in the next dragons books, I'm going to try and make these dragons a little bit more dragon-like. Another cool little behind the scenes thing here is, let me just turn off these ones. One of my favorite scenes is where they're freeing the animals, freeing the humans from their cages. And so what I did was, in the background here, they said, have a bunch of cages full of animals along with humans. And I thought, oh, this is my chance that I could fit a dinosaur in there or a raptor. And so if you look here, I put a velociraptor in one of the cages full with wings and everything. Um, this is some sort of prehistoric horse thing. There's a rooster. This right here is supposed to be some sort of like terror bird of some kind. Um, and then originally my idea was for this chalkboard was to just have some random equations or some sciencey looking stuff. But then I had the idea to hide a poem about the three moons because it's part of like the backstory of this or sort of a side story of this dragon world is they have these three moons, and if when certain dragons are born under certain phases of moons or how many moons are out, they're given special powers, and it has to do with a prophecy and all that stuff. And so I came up with a little like a dragon alphabet, and I put this little poem on the board, and it's like a little hidden thing that people can kind of figure out if they know how to find and understand cryptic or coded languages, I guess. Okay, so that was one cool thing. And then let's see, where else are we? There was another, what page is this? Page 128. I'll show you one thing I had to edit out. So there's this part where the humans are set free. Oh, and I will point out this before I get to that. This page was so hard to do, and I'll show you why. Um, if I turn off the line work, essentially I was given so many word bubbles. So it's how many panels? One, two, three, four, five, six panels on one page with essentially so many word balloons. If you look at this, like where do you fit a drawing into this page, right? How do the dragons have to be flying and they have to be talking to one another. And so that's why I always do the balloons first, because I just want to know how much real estate I actually have to work with. And so one
What
time,
is the scale there? I mean, like if I'm looking at these, whatever, 5 panels, how big is that top panel in terms of height, in true height?
oh, th this book is 6 by 9.
6 by 9. So that's probably like 2 inches
Yeah,
tall,
you can
right?
see it compared to my head here, right?
Well, you have a big head, so
Yeah. So then it's just a matter of going in here and sketching these in, and it meant, going in and just, okay, I have this much space. Let's figure out how to draw some dragons in that much space. And one of the key things too with comics you want to do is you never want to have the same distance from the characters or the same cropping of the characters for every panel on page. I always like to go have a medium shot, have a far away shot, have a close up shot, and just kind of back and forth between all these just to give it variation and to make the page feel a little bit more alive. But I think this page ended up turning out pretty successful, regardless of the space that I had. But then this next page here, so they let the dragons free, or the dragons let the humans free, and there's this dragon that sneaks up out of the water and snaps up one of them in his mouth and eats it. And I was like, I wonder if I can get away with a little blood and guts, right? Not guts, but a little blood. So what I turned in was this image where we actually see one of the humans getting like physically chomped up and the leg falling off, and the other humans like just freaking out about it. Ah, no. And
nice.
and they came back and said, no, that's a little too much for this book. And so I fixed it. Also, you could see originally I just had all females that they released, and they said, can you make one of them a guy? So I had to switch one of them out and make one of them a guy as well. Um,
Hey, real quick, I was able to stream onto Instagram. So, hey, everybody over on Instagram, this recording will be available on YouTube, so you can see the wide format on YouTube later if you want to check out the whole thing.
yeah. Okay, I see there's a couple questions here. I'm just gonna read Cinder's Cinder the Tired. You start with text and balloons first with digitally doing comics, but if you're working traditionally on comics, do you still prefer to start with the balloons? Yeah, it's because comics, you kind of think of when you say you're drawing comics or you're making comics, you're thinking of the drawing part a lot, but really comics is at its core a composition problem. It's one of the hardest composition problems each page that you have to solve. And you think about like when you're in art school and you're supposed to look at a painting and be like, where's your eye drawn to on this page? And how does, the rule of thirds balance out and all those rules that you learn from that, it applies to the comic page as well. And the thing with the highest amount of contrast on a comics page is the thing that is black and white, right? It's the word balloons. And so that's where the eye is drawn to first. They're the thing that kind of carry a person through a comic page. And so if you start a comic with drawing the heads first or the faces first, not knowing how much space you need left over for the balloons, you're kind of doing a disservice to the composition of the page. And so you always start with the balloons first, and then and it really helps to kind of be able to see the page, the blank page in your head to see it and just think, okay, if I put a word balloon here, I could kind of imagine a character being here. Um, and it might, if you're not doing it digitally, it might take a lot of erasing and redrawing to get that composition just right. But uh, but yeah, you got to do the balloons first. And there are many times, I mean, me laying out a page and just doing, I'll show you how loose a page looks like when it's laid out. Um, my first sort of pass at a page is so loose and so gnarly. Um, you can see here, like I don't even draw eyes on some of these characters. Like this is me just blocking in where I want that dragon to be. This right here, when I've gotten it this far with the panels here, this will take me an hour, maybe an hour and a half just to do this because there's so much erasing and redrawing and moving stuff around and figuring out word bubbles where I want to put them. And no, that's not going to work. Um, and then it doesn't seem like it's a lot of drawing, but it's really a lot of composition problem solving.
But you're not leaving room for in the bubbles for other translations. We got that question. You're just thinking about, hey, here's the text that I have. Is that
Right.
right?
What I'm doing though is the balloons are on a separate layer. So if they translate it to Japanese or whatever, and they realize that this balloon isn't big enough, they can go in and take off that layer and put in a balloon that's bigger
Mm.
and not really damage any of the art. Okay. Was there another question?
Oh my gosh, there's a million question. They've just been going. Which comic artists are you looking at for inspiration on panel and page design specifically? Is there anybody?
Oh, yeah. Um, Probably, I think his name is I forget his name actually, but I was for action scenes, I've been looking at a lot of like anime and manga, more manga than anime, just for like poses, but also like panel layout. So, um, there's a page here, and Daniel Warren Johnson too is a huge inspiration for some stuff as well. Um, he's a American comic artist, but there's a page here where I was like, I want to give this just the coolest looking panel of them flying close to the ground. And so a lot of manga have these speed lines, and there really wasn't a place to put speed lines too much in this book. And I thought, for this panel on this particular page, let's see, it's page 213. Let's see what the script asks for, and we'll see how I interpreted it. 213. Okay, so the script says a close-up of the scroll. The dagger lies on the scroll near where Darkstalker is writing a spell with an ink-dipped claw. There's also an open ink jar, obviously. A green beetle with the tiny black pincers crawls across part of the scroll. Panel two, it's still daylight. In the foreground, the dagger whizzes through the air, moving quickly towards us, point first. In the background, the three dragons are following the dagger. They're flying low over the desert floor. Okay, so that was panel two. Then panel three is a full width panel distant. On the left side of the panel, we see the three dragons. On the right side, we can see the dagger flying ahead of them, and then panel 4 is where we see the dagger hit its target. So we cast the spell for this dagger to go find its target and to stab it, right? And so you can see here close up, and then this one, um, I did this kind of this cool page where the dagger is leaving the edge of the panel. It's biggest in the foreground. Then we got Darkstalker next, and then making the dragon smaller and smaller. So you get this sense of movement through the panel. This one's a little bit more static, and then this one, it's almost like the camera is circling around them. And so now we finally get to see what they're seeing from this edge. But if you'll notice, I'm always keeping kind of the dragons on one side of the page and the dagger on the other side of the page just to keep that flow going. So we're not like reversing. Or there's a rule called the 180 rule in film, and it works in comics as well, where you don't want there's a degree uh, that the a 180 degree that you don't want the camera going around the opposite side of the characters and just staying on one side of them to help everything understand visually just be a little bit more cohesive and you can understand it better. We actually explain that deeper in Graphic Novel Pro. That's like one of the staging rules that you kind of have to follow when you're doing comics. Um,
Hey Jake, is there any kind of, just looking at all your panels here, and me never have done a graphic novel,
mhm.
and being a little bit intimidated by all this panel design, is there any panel generator, like a page that says, "Hey, here's an option," or "Here's an option," and sort of
Yeah,
like a bunch of acceptable sort of pre-built panels?
yeah. In fact, Clip Studio has this right here. So it gives you all these options of panels, and you can just
Oh,
drag
that's
that.
awesome.
You just drag it onto the page, and then you can mess around with them a little bit. But the more the more you do comics, the more you realize that that's kind of a crutch than an actual help.
Hmm.
Because you essentially you want to you want to design a page for the story that you're telling, not design a story for the page that you have.
Right. So it's sort of dictating the storytelling if you're picking a pre-built panel.
Right, right.
It
Now,
could also open up some other options that you may not have considered too. So is that the sort of the pro and the con there?
mhm, yeah. I mean, honestly, like I have a folder where I just save comic pages that I find online that look cool. And if I'm ever stumped, like, how would I do this? How did another artist do this particular type of thing? Or even Mike Holmes, I would look at the other graphic novels that he'd drawn of Wings of Fire and just be like, okay, I have 5 dragons I need to fit on a page and they're all talking. How do I do that? And so I'll look at some other comic artists and it'll help me. Now, I there's this scene where at the very end she leaves Darkstalker in a cave. And I was like, what's a good pose of like a character not dead, but essentially sleeping for a long time. And there's a meme called the Goku death pose where it's from Dragon Ball Z where he like lands in a crater and that pose has been used like it's been memed a bunch. You'll see it show up like it was in the latest Superman. When Superman crashes and burns in the beginning of the film, he's in the Goku death pose. And you see it in other anime and you'll see it in other books. And I thought, let's do the Goku death pose for Darkstalker here. So I think I
I guess
even may
you had
have
either that pose or the Han Solo being frozen. Those are your only two
right.
options.
Right. Um, so I don't know if I actually put the pose on, copied and pasted it on here and drew over the top, or if I just kind of drew it from looking at it. But that was definitely a deliberate little Easter egg that I wanted to do for this book. Um, and then here, this last page, one of the last pages, this is probably one of my most favorite pages to do. And this is where I was really given the freedom to I show this character like putting the rocks, closing up the cave, essentially burying her boyfriend in a cave because she's so, he's evil and it's the ultimate breakup. Putting him to sleep for infinity and then burying him in a cave. but it's still sad because she's a future seer. She could see all the possible futures, and she saw like several, maybe thousands of futures where they were happy together and he was good, but he chose
Okay.
the path where he becomes evil, and so that's why she's so sad. And I really wanted the emotion to play big in this, and so kind of having her over the top of the other panels, while we're seeing what's happening, playing out in the background. This is sort of my version, a comic page version of a montage in a way. And I think it sells it. I think it sells that emotion.
That's awesome. That's all. You
Okay.
want to take some more questions?
Yeah, and while we're doing that, I'm gonna pull up the cover because I do want to show what happened with this. So go
Oh,
ahead and ask.
okay. Well, real quick, I want to give a shout out to my mom who joined the live stream. You
She
don't
did
see
not.
that too often.
Right
Hey,
on.
mom, what's up? Okay. Have you ever been put in a position when you're doing a graphic novel where some subject matter you didn't agree with for moral reasons or whatever other reasons, and you had to say, no, I'm gonna draw the line there?
Um, specifically, like, give me an example. Have I?
Like there's a bunch of dragons smoking cigarettes or something. I don't know.
Oh,
Something that you would say no to, personally, that you're like, no, I'm not gonna do that.
yeah. I mean, I like to keep stuff PG-13, you know. So if a job came to me that was like, hey, we've got this great script, it's this really cool thing, and it involves me doing anything super violent or super sexual or something, I don't, that's not one of my things that I want
Has
to
that
do
ever happened though,
in
where
work.
you have to say, no, no, let's rewrite or something like that?
Early on, I mean, I've established myself pretty much as a guy who does this kind of stuff. If you read all my comics, they're all ages. Essentially my line in the sand is if you saw it in Star Wars or the Lord of the Rings movies, then I'm okay drawing it.
Got
But
it.
if you saw it in John Wick, that's too much for me, you know?
Okay.
Or
Um,
Game of Thrones or something like that. That's too much for me.
yeah, understood, understood. Anytime you're going, somebody's wondering if you're going to come to Europe, and if so, when are you going to do any kind of workshop in Spain or anything like you've done in the past?
I should do that. I just moved, so I'm probably going to take a year to kind of get my bearings, get settled and get my groove, and then probably 2027 I'll start looking at uh maybe use 2026 to set up some stuff overseas.
Got it. Got it.
Um
Talk a little bit more about Graphic Novel Pro, some details there. When does it start? How long is it? What can someone expect if they wanted to learn how to do this?
okay, so the Graphic Novel Pro starts, registration is going to open for a few days before Christmas. So if you want to, as a little Christmas present for yourself or a tax write-off for 2025, definitely sign up then. But it doesn't start until January 22nd. And we're going to open registration for a week prior to that. Now, what's going to happen is you're going to sign up for Graphic Novel Pro and immediately join 50, hopefully 100 other artists who are currently making comics as well. And the reason we want that many artists, like we did last time, is you need a certain amount of artists sharing their work and commenting on work to really have a nice cohort and a community of people to help you with your comics. Also, to find people who might have a little bit of overlap and interest in what you're doing. Sometimes when we have smaller groups, it might be that you're doing all ages comics while someone's doing something really hardcore and like violent, and they might not have the feedback. You two might not have the right feedback for each other. But when you have a larger group, you get a little bit better cross section of comics creators, and you get a lot of I would say like just a nice mix of backgrounds and experiences. So part of it is having a good, really solid community of people that you can share your work with, get inspired from, inspire others, help others with what you know as well, because that is a really key feature and thing that we want to do is bring comic artists together. So that's one part of it. The other part of it is access to instructors. So we have 10 weeks that we're dropping multiple videos every week of pretty dense, detailed, and thorough comics teaching, not just about how to do comics, but also about how to navigate the world of comics, the publishing industry, the direct market industry, what the difference is between the two, and where you feel like you should fit in that. And then every week we have office hours. So we're going to take questions. We're going to answer people, talk to people. Basically, anybody who shows up and has a question, they're going to get answers right then and there. If you can't make it to office hours, we have a system set up where you can leave your question and we'll answer those questions on the office hours. They're all recorded, so you can come back and watch them later. You know, if you happen to have to work or you have some other obligation when we're doing the live session. And then this time around, Sean and I are going to get a few other pros in the comics industry to show up and do some live streams with us as well. Some big names. So that's what we're working on right now.
That's
Can't
awesome.
announce anything just yet.
They're not going to need Clip Studio Pro to do the class, are they?
No, I mean, we show a little bit how to use it, but mostly it's, a lot of people get caught up on what kind of tool makes what kind of mark on what kind of paper. And that's important, but really what matters is your storytelling clear? Does the panel to panel pacing work? Are your balloons compositionally sound? And that's what we really lean into is teaching you how to do that stuff. And that stuff is independent of whether you're working digitally on Procreate, on Clip Studio, and Photoshop, on a paper with ink. We want to teach you like the very fundamental stuff that you need to learn to make good comics. And then it's up to you to figure out what tool works best for you. Sometimes I draw comics on paper. Sometimes I do them on Clip Studio. All depends on if I'm working for a client or if I'm working for myself and how much time I have, you know?
Hey, you want to quit your share so we can see our faces and I can put them on Instagram?
Yeah.
Couple of other questions
Really
about.
quick, I just want to show the alternate cover designs for the
Oh yeah.
cover. And then we'll do questions and we'll call it good for today. So, about halfway through the book, they're like, okay, we got to figure out what the cover is, what it's going to be. And so I went and sat down and I was like, I'm going to do six designs and that'll give them plenty of options. And once we, um, usually if you show six, 3 to 6, it gives them enough to say, this is the direction we need to go. And so essentially, I showed them this and they said, we really like what's going on here in A, but we love the moons in the background for E and a little bit of D with the rock, with him standing on the rock. So it was cool that I gave him that many options because then we were able to cobble together something and I was able to then provide a sketch like this that shows the 3 moons, the dragon with his arms up, and then, or with the wings spread, and a little bit of the rock. Now you notice um, I went all the way through to like inking this dragon, Darkstalker, in this pose. And then towards the end, I realized, oh, wait, if his head was turned the other way, we could see this cool earring. He has a snake earring that he wears, and it's enchanted so that if if he's wearing that, anybody that sees him just like trusts him and likes him. It's like a charismatic spell or something like that. So I flipped it the other way so we could see that cool ring, and I ended up not doing the colors. These colors were done by Marta, who did the colors for the book and the other Dragons graphic novels. Um, she did an amazing job. But essentially, it was a nod to Joy Ang's cover which was essentially a black dragon with a red background, and I wanted to stick with stick with that when I was coming up with these designs. She did such a good job nailing it. Like He's that black and red works so well together, and so we did it. Last sort of thing, when I was designing the moons and I was sketching, I was like, wait a minute. The planet that these dragons are from have these two big continents, and the continents themselves are shaped like dragons. And I was like, I always thought that was kind of cool, and kids love that too. I thought, well, wouldn't that be the same in other celestial bodies, specifically the moons that rotate the planet? So why not hide some dragon iconography in those moons as well? And so the largest moon, I hid a dragon head in the craters, and then the second largest moon, a dragon tail that sort of curved around. And then the last moon, I drew a human skull because even though it's a dragon planet, humans are the second most smartest species on this planet. And so I figured they need a moon too.
Nice.
All right, I'll
Uh,
stop sharing screen and then we'll just take it on out with any questions that we have.
do
Okay.
do I'm gonna put you in the center for Instagram. Do people need to have a manuscript already ready to go, or what state does that need to be in for the class?
Oh, so for the class, we actually teach you how to write a manuscript for your comic. So there's an entire week's worth of videos, maybe 2 weeks, devoted to coming up with an idea, figuring out plot, theme, character arc, all that stuff, and then writing an outline for it. And then how do you write that outline into something that you can use, kind of like what I was getting here for a script for the graphic novels. So we really want you to lean in on your storytelling chops and not just provide a story for you, but have you guys come up with your own story for this.
Yep. I can answer that last question that Phil is asking, which is, are you planning on running this course again in the fall? They want to take the class, but they can't do it right now. This class will probably run once a year, along with Children's Book Pro and a number of the workshops that we've been building.
Mhm.
Is that right?
Yeah. What we'll probably do is later in the year, Sean and I will do a workshop, just a couple of weekends, which will be sort of like comics focused. It might be focused on one aspect of making comics. We still haven't figured out exactly what we want to do, but that might be a good thing in between to kind of get you ready for the next Graphic Novel Pro or to keep you sharp after you've already taken Graphic Novel Pro.
Have you tried the Clip Studio Paint on the iPad? Is it the same as the desktop?
Yeah, it's not bad. I definitely have a Bluetooth keyboard to go with your to hook up to your iPad because it's so much easier with the hotkeys.
Got it. What about coloring? Do you go into coloring in the graphic novel,
Hmm.
in Graphic Novel Pro?
Yep, we have a coloring section as well. You know, any one of these things, inking, penciling, layouts, coloring, we touch on all of them and really we show you our method for coloring quick and fast that still looks pretty good. But so we're gonna get you up and running with coloring. But I I love it when people bring their own coloring knowledge to their comics as well. I keep telling Lee he needs to make a comic because he has such a
I'm taking
unique
the class. I'm going to do it.
he's got such a unique style that would look really well. Okay, is Graphic Novel Pro super beginner friendly? No, this we're not teaching you how to draw. You should know how to draw first. This is taking people who know how to draw and teaching them how to draw comics, which um, uh, comics is one of those hard things where you have to understand composition. You have to understand how to draw a figure from 100 different poses. You have to understand character design, perspective, because you're drawing characters in, you think of Spider-Man over New York City. Like you should be able to be you should be able to draw at least a foundational level before you sign up for Graphic Novel Pro because you're going to get really frustrated that you're learning how to do all these comic stuff when you still don't know how to do perspective. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Have some kind of base. They're asking about Graphic Novel Pro versus Children's Book Pro, Children's Book Pro is getting an overhaul as well. We got a lot of new stuff going in there. That's opening up in the summertime,
Hmm.
early summer.
Yeah. Um, previous graphic novel pro takers, you will get, if you want to attend the new stuff live, like be in the session with the people who are live, we have a deep discount to take it the second time. Otherwise, we'll have access to everything when it's over with that you'll be able to see later. Um, there's a couple other good ones. Who's your favorite student? Why is it Mabel? It's because she's got such a great personality and she's a hard worker. That's really what it is. Um, how often does Jake go from pencil to color in graphic novels? Um, I'd say for like Darkstalker, my job wasn't to color, it was just to pencil and ink it. Um, anytime I'm doing a comic myself, I will take it to the inking level and then sometimes I will color them myself, but lately I've been working with colorists, hiring them to color it for me, and giving them kind of notes on where I want to go with it, but essentially letting them do their thing. Um, and so that's worked out really well. It takes a lot off your plate because I tell you, comics, by the time you've written it, laid it out, penciled it, inked it, you've drawn the thing 4 times now already. Once in your head, and then 3 times on paper or digitally. And then you got to go in and color it. That's a fifth time. Like it's just a lot of work.
It's too much. I mean, considering that many pages, it's a lot.
Um, Art Lover Animation says, if I'm still in early drafts writing phase, should I wait until the next class? No, this is perfect because um, we actually want people who don't have a story yet or are doing a new story because we teach you how to do writing a story from scratch. So it might even be helpful to be early on in your stages because then you can kind of fix some stuff.
Yeah. Another
Um,
question about being graded or how's the class work that way. That is the beauty of these pro classes. Two sides of that. You're not graded during any of the pro classes, but you have access to do as much as you want to do, and then you have access to all the materials for 2 months after the class is over, along with the ability to talk to us through our community as well. So it takes the pressure off. Some people are all in and they're doing it every day. Some people have full-time jobs or kids or whatever, and they hit the parts that they can do.
Here's one about making comics. Do you ever feel the details in the script take away from some of your creative freedom or ideas? Do you ever read a script and think you have a better way to format the story? No and yes. So I'll read the script, and sometimes it's exactly what I need to do to get the page going. Because Barry and uh, what's the girl's name? Marcel? I forget. I'm sorry. The people who wrote the script for me for this particular project and even other scripts that I've worked on, they really understand that the person drawing it, they're writing it knowing that I'm drawing it. And when I've worked with Scotty Young, he wrote scripts knowing that I was drawing it. And so they know where my strengths lie and they know, listen, it's got to get this particular job done. Now that said, they haven't drawn it yet. So they don't know some of the problems that might be inherent with what they're asking of me. And so when I'm getting in there and I'm drawing it, I may realize like, oh, the script calls for 5 dragons to be in the background. I can only fit 4. So I'm going to fit 4. Or the script might say, there's a few dragons in the background. I'll be like, well, I got all this room here. I can add so many more. Or the script might say, um, the dragons, lift off and fly over here. Well, this is a chance for me to really flex. And it might not say what's in the background or what's underneath them, but I'm going to be like, well, shoot, I'm going to draw the coolest background ever behind these dragons because I really want to flex. I'll show you one more example of where the second part of that question is, um, do you have a better way to format the story? I'll show you let me share my screen here really quick. Uh, So it was page uh, this one, page 202. And in the script here, it says so many pages. Okay, so the script says for panel 3, it says a large panel showing clear sight partway down a grand palace staircase. She's moving quickly. So that's all it says, right? So what did I do? I was like, well, let's do the grandest palace staircase we can ever do. It didn't say design a really cool three moon motif that's like made out of tiles and bricks in the wall. It didn't say draw two dragons carved out of stone acting as sort of like sentinels at the edge of the staircase. It didn't say throw guards in there. It didn't say have terraced gardens on the side. But this is my job as an artist to be like, what do we do to make this as cool and as, sort of getting you into the moment as possible? And so I could have phoned this one in and said, shoot, it's getting late. I want to go to bed tonight. We'll just draw the easiest staircase we could do. Or I can upset the colorist and be like, here, let's do this really cool tiled relief sculpture thing on the side of the wall and really make this let's build out the world here for these characters even more. And so that's why I love this kind of world building in comics and just in storytelling in general, because you could say so much with just a few details in the background that I think improve the story overall.
It's amazing looking work, man.
Thank you. Okay, if there's any other questions,
I think we're about in an hour
good.
and 15 or so. We probably
Okay,
should wrap it up.
let's wrap it up.
All right.
All right. Thank you everybody for joining us today. I'm glad everybody could make it out. This was a lot of fun and it's just some good questions and I'm excited for everybody who's going to be in Graphic Novel Pro with us. Again, sign up now to get on that waiting list and we'll let you know right away when registration is open.
Yep, that link is again in the chat. It's pinned at the top if you want to check out more about the class. We look forward to seeing you guys in there and in our SVS community in general.
Yep.
Awesome.
Everybody.
Bye, guys.